the audio.
Just give me 2 seconds. I'll give you the thumbs up, all right?
Yeah, by the time I've read this, YouTube should have caught up. That's the reason for doing this.
Oh, that's
You just
true.
don't
We're
need
on
to hear
Zoom.
this.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Off
okay.
you go.
So good evening, everyone. Before I hand over to the chair, Councillor Cook, for tonight's meeting, I just want to remind everyone that we are now live streaming onto YouTube. So we'd politely request that all participants take turns to speak, avoiding cross-talk. This will help the mics lock in on the primary speaker and thereby maximise the sound quality for those watching at home. If you are watching at home and wish to participate in tonight's meeting, please turn your video on. These are for people on Zoom, because obviously YouTube you can't take part. If you are just observing, please turn your video off. Unless actively speaking, all those watching the meeting via Zoom should have their mics muted. So I'll now hand over to Councillor Cook, the chair for tonight.
Good evening all, welcome to the Economic Development and Planning Committee meeting on Monday the 21st of February. We'll start with the public participation. Any members of the public that wish to speak? Any questions? Mike?
I just wish to speak to one of the CAT-G requests, if that's okay. Would you like me to do that now, or when the item comes up on the agenda later on?
Is it complicated? Will we forget?
Not really, no. It's very, very straightforward. Basically, it's a request that I've submitted to impose a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit and a 3-ton maximum gross vehicle weight limit on that section of Easton Way and Snowbury Lane in anticipation of the new road opening, which will take traffic away from that area.
So in that case, maybe bring that no, we'll wait till the next time.
Okay, yeah, we'll bring that item forward now. Mike, if you want to carry on.
So we'll open the meeting.
Okay.
Right, sorry.
All right.
Open the meeting, we'll do the declarations in a minute. And then if the committee are agreeable, we will take that CAT-G request first on the agenda before we do the plan application.
I'm James.
Hi, hello Anne, hi.
My name's Anne James. I live in Savanack Avenue. First of all, disabled parking. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 places here, and they're all being taken up by non-disabled cars. Therefore, the person who brought me had to park on double yellow lines with my disabled sticker. Right, I'm speaking on behalf of our disabled persons regarding the proposed introduction of charging for the use of disabled parking bays in Melksham. I understand that Melksham is an age-friendly town. Hopefully that will give any disabled person access to the shops and businesses as it is now. The Church Street car park has 10 disabled bays, allowing level access to the town for people wishing to do shopping. If this was used as charging, apparently I've been told that it will be paid on a mobile smartphone, which means that people that haven't got a mobile smartphone will not be able to pay for parking and therefore won't be able to use the disabled slots anyway. It seems that by charging for disabled parking, it means that anyone with any mobility problems is not welcome to shop in Melksham. And let's face it, we're all trying to shop locally to keep our town viable business-wise. Alternative parking was mentioned in the read-up, so I think it's in the newspaper. Now, where is this alternative parking? There's disabled parking in Sainsbury's and in the Riverside car park. Now, how is anyone with mobility problems going to get up that hill to get to the shops in the town? Therefore, we won't be welcome to shop in the town. I've spoken to quite a few people and they all agree with this. And we've actually discussed the fact that if we're not allowed to park in a disabled bay because we can't pay on our non-smartphones, we'll park on the yellow lines. And Melksham will be totally congested. So double yellow lines near the Savers outside there, and two widths of traffic, including the buses and the lorries going up to the roundabout. They won't be able to access that at all. And basically, I'm asking you to review the disabled parking policy. And I don't know whether it's Trowbridge that is trying to insist that Melksham's disabled parking is going to be paid for. As a disabled person, I want to be able to shop. I haven't got a smartphone. I want to go to Iceland, Boots, the car shop, or anything like that. I need to use the car because I can't walk far enough to get to the shops. But could you please review this situation, which seems to be upsetting all of us?
Well, thank you very much for your comments, and we will review.
We need to get a unitary council to respond because it isn't a policy or a decision of the town or council. So we'll get the
County council.
It's a county council
yeah.
item.
And I think with the phone, I could be wrong, that officials have a choice to pay at the meter as well. I think they're trying to make it easier by if you've got a smartphone, but you know, we get that clarified from the unitary councillor as well.
Just saying about the phone, we think it's a choice. You can
Yeah.
use the phone or you can still use the machines.
As you can now.
Yeah,
But they're a long way away. If
I
you live
appreciate
Church
that.
Street,
Okay. Yeah.
anyone with mobility problems or in a wheelchair can't access the payment meters.
Okay. I know, it's just, we can't, we will get the unitary councillors to a response, so we can actually get a response as such.
Yeah, echoing that too, I don't think any of us here can really speak for Wiltshire Council, but from a town council perspective, I think all of us would love to see a greater uptake of the reimbursement scheme, which I know can be a pain, but Lucy said you shop at Gompels. And if you do, if they do go ahead with this and you do have to pay, I'd encourage you to reclaim that cost from the town council, for which we will reimburse the parking. I don't think, none of us here can really speak for Wiltshire Council, but from a town council perspective, that's what we're doing.
But then if you pay for an hour, you've got to go around all the shops trying to get a reimbursement.
Yeah, so you get a reimbursement from the one local shop that you use. So if you pay for an hour, you can get your reimbursement from Gompels, and they'll reimburse you for that hour.
But nobody's going to go shopping for an hour in Gompels.
No, you
Okay,
don't have
You
to.
okay.
don't have to buy anything.
Yeah, you don't have to buy anything, you can just get your money back. We are gonna, thank you for your comments, we need to move on.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is there any more from the public? Hello,
In
hi.
fact, I've got two items I'd like to raise. One of them, I believe, is already on the agenda, so you may want to wait for that. It's about the traffic lights, the 3 sets of traffic lights. I believe they're by Church Street. Is that on the agenda?
Yes. it is,
Yes.
yeah.
Would you like me to wait until it comes up on the agenda, or?
Can I ask what the other item is as
The
well?
other item is the high pavements. I really, really feel that we need some barriers on the high pavement. There have been a couple of close shaves. My guide dog is absolutely perfect. He works really hard. I had special training with him to try to keep close to the shops as we walk along. However, when there are people coming the other way, particularly I have found people with mobility scooters to be very aggressive and coming towards me at speed. Now, my guide dog has been trained to stop to try to block me having an accident, which he's had to do a couple of times, because he will not, when these mobility scooters come along, it's almost as though they're trying to force me and my guide dog towards the other edge, and we will refuse to move. And it's been some close shaves. It's quite a scary area along that high pavement. I really believe we need barriers along there so that to at least give the sense of safety. It makes quite a difference to somebody who is severely sight impaired as I am to have some sort of feeling of security when walking. And I would feel that if something like this happened again, then at least I would have a barrier there that would indicate to me, right, you're right at the edge of the pavement. There are no tactile markings along that high pavement. There's a dirty, what used to be a bright white line I expect when it was first painted, but it's really not visible to me. Really, I'd like that looked at to have it much safer, please, for people who are disabled. And perhaps, I don't know what you can do about people in their mobility scooters, they seem to be revving them up. Souped up, they've got souped up mobility scooters, I'm afraid, in this town.
I
And they're
can't
quite reckless
answer
with
for
them.
the speed and recklessness
They are
of,
quite reckless with them.
well, we
They're very
can't,
frightening.
yeah.
They're worse than,
Yes,
I found them worse than motorised scooters. They're a pain, but I haven't actually experienced too much with motorised scooters, but I have it all the time with mobility scooters.
Well, thank you for your comments. Can I answer? Yeah. I just I'll echo your thoughts. I think everyone, I probably speak for a lot of people in town, there is a barrier needed on those, and it's been needed for a long, long time. I think it's something we could look at as the town council, definitely. Councillor Behind.
I think I raised two issues without meaning to then.
Okay, done.
I'd like to comment, I know this has come up time and time again, I recall it coming up when I was first on the council. There are some structural, all sorts of reasons why it's difficult to put barriers on that high pavement. But the fact you've raised it again, maybe it needs looking at that. But there's a lot of history that can be referred to so that we can build on that perhaps.
I believe previous times it's been because of a weight limit, but there are all kinds of different metals and other kinds of reinforced whatever that can be used instead that are lighter.
Okay, Councillor Ellis.
Just to say that in the last few years it's come up, and I believe there are cellars to the houses underneath, and that's why we can't go poking things through the pavement. And so I wouldn't hold my hopes up too much. But I don't know whether it's worth.
It shouldn't be up to the householders along there don't own that pavement. It's owned by
No,
the
but they do
council.
own the property underneath. You see.
Colours that go underneath to the road.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, now that I saw a few years ago.
I'm sure there must be some sort of solution where something could be anchored to it instead of driven in.
Councillor Ellis.
Just briefly, I don't think on all previous things then that the idea of tactile edging was previously mentioned. So that's something that could be looked at and could work. It's not a total solution, but it is something that could help to mark the edge there and to deal with that there, and that would not impinge in the things underneath. That's a possibility. The mobility scooters, I'm told there are two types, one of which has a 4 mile an hour speed limit and one which has an 8 mile an hour speed limit, two legal types. I have a suspicion in Melksham that some of the 4 mile an hour ones have actually had their limiters removed so they can go faster. And it's certainly a problem on Spa Road as well.
They're definitely going faster than that, much faster than anyone walking.
I will say they also want to avoid getting over the edge just like you do.
Yeah.
So everybody's fighting for the
Which is
same
why they're
space.
trying to drive me and my guide dog over to the other side. It's just
yes.
dreadful.
Which is why I use the word fight.
Okay,
Can we go through the chair?
yeah,
Sorry.
just,
Sorry.
Sorry.
Or maybe not.
yeah, it's just an alarm off. Thank you, Graham.
I was
Councillor
just going
Mortimer.
to mention the same thing that Graham did about the tactile sort of like surface.
And do we need to look at any signage that says even mobility school, there is a limit? I don't know if we can put,
It would have to be highways.
yeah, highways,
Yeah.
so we've asked highways for signage on there about speeds of mobility scooters on pavements.
Just a thought here, Chair. One of the things we could do is on our social media campaign, make a comment that we're having issues with mobility scooters doing over 4 miles an hour on the pavement and ask people to gently remind friends and relatives of any sort, that there is that limit there, and looking after the safety of everybody else.
We could do that through.
We can do that on social
March
media,
and
definitely, yes.
Through the min as well, I think we could do that. Okay, Simon,
I wonder as a suggestion, Graham might know more about this, but what is the minimum width for shared use? Perhaps when you have a line down the middle of bikes and motorised vehicles on one side and pedestrians on the other. Is it?
I think the minimum is a metre and a half, the design is 2 metres.
Oh, it's not 2 meters all the way through, is it?
No,
No, I was just going to say, I just think if you split that pavement, you're either going to have, you're going to have somebody right on the edge, really, aren't you? Like, I don't think it would split.
okay, regarding your other point, I think with regard to the lights on the Church Street, the pedestrian crossings, etc. So if we,
yeah, let's do the declaration of interest.
Yeah.
And then it's a committee review, you can
Well,
go
we-
through category
okay.
issues forward it.
okay, so we're going to just carry on for a minute just with the proceedings, and then we hopefully we'll come back to those very quickly. So any declarations? Sorry, yeah, it is apologies. Apologies. Anything else, John?
Yes.
Yes.
That's valid.
Councillor Hubbard. Any declarations of interests? No. Okay, the minutes of the last meeting on the 31st of January. Everyone read the minutes and has anyone got any? So proposer to say they're okay, Safi and seconder Graham. Both they were true and accurate. Two minutes, thank you. So it's unanimous, yeah.
And then the commission is gonna slip the page down from-
Okay, so that's. Applications for-
That's gonna have to get approval from the committee to move forward.
Yeah.
Agenda items.
Here we are, that's the fine. Speed limit. 7.1. 7.2. Okay, committee, are you happy to suspend? Bring these items forward for our members of the public. All happy? Yeah. So, Mike, if I'm going to ask, okay, resolution suspend standing orders. Proposed Sue, seconded Graham. Vote, all vote, there we are. Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to go on to point 7.2. Highways improvements. That was. We can go to 7.5. We have the audible alerts. And that's our just so I guess. Okay. So we are going to highways improvements notice audible alerts at 3 pedestrian crossings at the junction of Church Street and High Street, Melksham. Pages 19 to 20 of our pack. To consider the attached request submitted for the reinstatement of the audible alerts at the 3 pedestrian crossings at the junction of Church Street and High Street. Yeah.
Is that my turn?
Okay.
Oh,
Would you like to speak about?
yeah, sorry.
That's all right, I can't see
See,
you there, that's all right.
couldn't see that.
That's
all.
okay, yeah.
Previously, the three lights there haven't had the audible beeping because they.
Can I just stop you 1 second?
Yes.
We do need for the record to know your name
Oh, I am so
and
sorry.
where you're from. That's
I'm-
my fault, not yours, so don't worry.
Caroline Fielding, Bader Park, 57 Bader Park, Bow Hill.
Thank you.
Oh, so you're not a Melton Town resident?
Oh,
Strictly speaking, you're not allowed to address council, but.
Am I not?
Yeah, but
oh,
I think we can let.
But we are going to lecture,
Yeah.
so please talk. Thank you.
It's where I come to my shopping, there's
I know,
nothing in
yeah.
Bow Hill.
And it does affect everyone, so thank you.
yes.
Please
so-
carry on.
Okay, so previously there hasn't been an audible sound because all the traffic lights have not worked in sync. And I've always called it the blind man's knob, the little twiddly thing underneath the button. So I use that which is really for hearing impaired. So you can feel it, the texture, it spins, and I've always used that. Which is a bit awkward, especially if there are people there, because if somebody's there and my dog's trying to find his way to the button and to be able to hold on to the spinny thing. Now that all the lights are apparently in sync, it would be really useful if the audible sound can be reinstated to those lights, because then it's so easy then just to know how long you've got to cross the road. And also, if you needed to, you could, instead of crossing one street and then the other, because they're all in sync, you know how long you've got from the audible sound to go diagonally across if you needed to. It would be very, very useful. And there's another traffic light at Pelican Crossing as well, just outside the library, where the audible sound is very, very quiet. Could we please have the sound on that raised?
Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your comments. Any questions? Councillor Ray?
Yeah, no, I should say I would fully support it. I mean, I was quite surprised when I first moved here, crossing over to Aston, the fact that there is no, especially on that road, with it being actually quite a loud road and things, yes, you have to knob. As you rightly say, Caroline, if there's a lot of people stood there, it's difficult to get to it. So I would fully support that getting this done.
Councillor.
My understanding is that the reason there was no sound on that one there is that there's also sound on the one just down from, just opposite Gonjo and opposite Avon Place. And there was concern about the sound from one affecting people on the other, and expecting that people would cross hearing the sound, but actually hearing the sound from the one just down the road.
Now that the three are you talking about the three working together or a different one?
I'm talking about a different one, not the three crossings together
Right.
on the
Costa you're talking about.
Oh, by Costa.
Costa, yes.
No, the one by Costa is far away, that you can't hear that one. It's a long enough distance not to affect those three on that junction.
Don't shoot the messenger, that's an excuse.
No,
Look, they're good to hear that.
Speaking as a severely sight impaired person, I cannot hear when I'm trying to cross where the three crossings are. I can't hear the one down at Costa. So
Good, fine.
and the Costa one's very good.
Okay, I think we've got some report here and information. That
Timeless
might be useful.
legislation actually dictates that you can't have audible signals close together, and 30 metres is close. That's the reason that there's no audible when it's free to cross there, because it can be confusing when you're stood at one crossing and it could be another crossing that's actually ready to go, not the one that you're stood at. Also, it's a highly residential area, and you get complaints from residents. There's usually residential areas, there's objections. Now all of Avon Place and all of along the high street is residential above the shops. That's the reason that they are silent and you have to use the tactile.
I can understand it with the
I mean, I'm only repeating what Highways have said, it's not.
no,
Sorry, I don't
no.
like being happening.
But while all the traffic lights are all working in sync, they are acting as one crossing rather than separate crossings. When they were working as and
No,
acting
not-
separately, then they would.
They're not all the same.
They're not in sync
No.
because the first one at Costa
No,
is
Costa is-
independent, but it would still be taken in the mix, and if they were working together, if they were all on red together, it would cause traffic chaos right back past the Lowbourne roundabout. I mean, I'm only talking from highways, I mean, we can try, we can ask the
So
question.
is Costa within the distance,
Yeah.
the legal distance?
Yes.
Sue,
Yeah, I did have Andy Howell, and he did tell me, because he did first of all say that the Church Street lights were together. So I pointed out that they were in sync, and he said, you are correct that the Church Street duplexes are synced together. However, the Costa Coffee lights are not. And because they are in close proximity to the hiding place, lights and audible signal cannot be used. An audio signal cannot be used on both crossings then. If you look at, if there is crossings that are, yeah, just what I mean. If you can hear Costa Crossing,
Yes.
when you're at no hiding place,
yes,
or the other way round, so you'd have no lights on, no audible sounds going, I couldn't accept that.
well, with that, so again, it's Wiltshire Council Transport. That we need to
It
set
needs
that up.
looking into, and he did say to me if I wasn't happy with what he was saying, then I needed the item to go to Catch in.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously, yes, talk about residents, it comes down to,
Yeah,
who's, it works both sides as such, everyone's gonna, and if there are lots of complaints, and there obviously are complaints from residents, that's why they changed it, but I'm happy that we can make it, we can listen and see what we can do, but
Yeah, I mean, you have residents at Avon Place, they've got the Costa Coffee one, they've got, you know, they've got that sign on there. There's residents down in the streets, I've never known it being a cause of it.
so Costa is audible.
Yes, yeah,
And the
so why is one audible and the other is not, it just doesn't make sense.
I agree, that, but whether it, whether it should or shouldn't, but it's something we can look into,
Yeah.
definitely.
If I can just go back to a bit of history on this, I worked at Peter Barclays and we were at Pearce's, yeah, with Pearce's, so we could hear the crossings there. The crossings never used to be in sync. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think what happened, there was an accident of happening, just like Caroline said could, if they were, and they were turned off, the lights were turned off, the audible sound was turned off. And things progressed, the crossings were put in sync, but the audible sound was never put on. There was no issue with the distance of the crossings when they weren't in sync, when we had the sound on, because there were sound on, I expect Pat can remember when we used to have sound on the Church
Yeah, I
Street
can
ones.
remember, but I can't remember which ones or how long ago it was.
Yeah, but it was quite a while ago, but I think there was an accident, and I think they took the sound off. But since then, they've been in sync, so I can't see that it's going to be a problem. So that's why I put the motion forward.
Can I just say, on the subject of people being disturbed, I don't think, I mean, you mentioned that that's what the ruling
It's one of the
mentions,
considerations.
but I don't, as far as I know, there haven't been any complaints to do with these crossings that we're talking
Because there
about.
aren't any audible signals.
Well, not even when they were, when the
I
signals,
think that's part of the
were there.
reason that they were turned off.
well.
Well, I think we can look to find out
Yeah,
why.
it
I
needs
think-
looking into.
Yeah,
Cat
we
D
can
will
look-
be the committee that
Yes,
will-
Cat G to look at, Simon.
So from this as well, I mean, if they can be at different volumes, is there anything to stop us from, as a town council, requesting that they're put on, even if it is at a reduced volume? Because some audio signal is better than nothing, if you can't see and you can't get to
Can I propose that we ask Cat G to take this through further?
Yes.
We're speculating, we don't know fully what the rules are.
Sue?
I'm not sure, but I think the one at Union Street, I think it's got a timer on, so it's not, you know, if I've used it at sort of like 11, 12 o'clock at night, it's not making a noise, whether it's just an off or whether it's actually.
Well, I think if we just take what Graham has proposed, that we look at the Cat G.
I mean, I would propose that we look to get let's get a good, correct answer that will work for everybody and will fix there. But we're not going to be able to do it at this meeting here,
No,
we've
we're
not
not.
got the authority. Cat G has the ability to go to find out, to do those things there. And I think that's probably the fairest answer rather than rushing an answer for members of the
Absolutely,
public.
I second that.
Okay, so we propose to take this to Cat G and find and see what the actual
I mean,
what
I
they
have
can do
spoken
for
to the
us.
highways engineer, I'm not repeating it, I'm not making it up, just to get that clear.
Okay, but we'll come back, I think it's actually come back that we can give something
Yeah.
with everyone.
So we're going to have something with authority to
Yes.
everybody.
Yeah.
Is that going to be an answer for members of the public?
No, it sounds
Would
perfect.
that be, would that be
Yeah.
appropriate?
All good.
Right.
Thank you, thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Right, allegedly, this summer or early autumn, the new road past the Oakfield Stadium should be completed and opened. At that point, arguably that provides an opportunity to install additional measures on Snowbury Lane and the section of road from Snowbury Lane to existing Eastern Way, to apply additional measures to sort of reduce and control the traffic that will still be making use of that road, which will in effect should become a residential road. To that end, I would like to think we could request a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit extension from Snowbury Lane to the new T junction on Eastern Way, and also impose a 3-ton maximum gross vehicle weight limit along the road. The reason I've proposed 3-ton is because that would stop builders' vans and 7.5-ton lorries and all the rest of it using that road, because they do cause quite a bit of noise along Snowbury Lane, which is something I'm still receiving complaints about. And also, obviously, the new development, there already are a lot more houses actually fronting onto that section of road. So I just felt that would be 2 useful measures that we could impose. And the reason I'm raising them now is so we can start the legal process and hopefully have that up and ready to install as soon as the new road is opened. Thank you.
Simon? Sue, just sorry, would you like to stay? Sorry,
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to me. And thank you for letting me talk in louder. The outsider was allowed to speak. Thank
Things up later.
Thank you.
You're on the
Just wait for this.
Yeah, that's a bit interesting.
Yeah, no, because I'm apparently talking to Colin at the moment, no.
I have to go.
What am I going to get?
I must say, it looks a bit smarter on the screen.
Yeah. All right.
Here, it's like
I wasn't feeling
it, but on there, it's $3 grand.
Yeah. Some minutes for that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mike. Simon, you do.
Thank you. Just to say, having canvassed quite heavy around here, knocked on the doors, if you go and speak to residents, particularly closer to Snowbury Lane, and go inside their house, the cracks that are formed from the rumbling on the road, because that road wasn't built to withstand HGVs, so the vibrations caused a huge amount of damage to those properties near the road. So particularly with the weight limit, is what in conjunction with the reduced speed limit, I can improve this more. I think it's definitely something we should be doing. And I'd like to thank Councillor Sandy for bringing this to us so we can get the ball rolling to sort of get this in place as the new road opens.
Thanks. Jack?
Yeah, no, thank you, Mike, for bringing this forward. I totally agree with your recommendation here. My question is, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm a bit new to all of this, so am I right thinking that this one legal cost we'll be paying if we looked at changing the 20 miles an hour speed limits that we were thinking of looking at? Maybe, earlier on we were saying, is it one legal cost that you pay? No,
A few.
there's a
No,
few.
Each one has to have a
Each
proper
one has to-
traffic order, yeah.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
No, I was just thinking this could be a perfect idea, whatever the word is, to change those 20 miles an hour speed limits that we were looking at doing at one time, as well as this 30 miles an hour speed limit. But if it's have to be separate.
No, I think John, I know what you're saying, I think John mentioned it once, that it was cheaper to do a job lot than. I can remember him saying that, but I don't know quite.
Simon?
Just say with this, because it's the big roundabout, the Western Way roundabout, that's a 40. And it's actually a 40 for a tiny stretch going up Spa Road into the town, isn't it? And then it goes down to a 30 by the next roundabout. If we were changing this to 30, would it make sense to bring that 30 mile an hour limit to the Western Way roundabout? Because it's a bit of a nonsensical 40 for a couple of 100 yards until you get to the town. Whereas it's understandable having it 40 going around towards the AP50, but that's Spa Road. So.
Yeah.
No.
Good idea.
Just to clarify, Mike, the new road that's being built from the new estate, which seems to be running alongside or adjacent to Snowbury Lane, that's going to take the majority of the heavy goods vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Snowbury Lane one becomes the secondary road. Really, that's where we want to keep the lorries out of.
In theory, although clearly if there's no weight restriction imposed
Yeah, they'll
whatsoever,
use-
there's nothing to stop the
use what they used to.
HGVs to continue using that as a
Yeah.
shortcut or a rat run,
Yes.
which is certainly what I would do.
Sorry. Sorry, you know. Nice to talk to you. Graham, did you?
Yes, I just have one here. Just a clarification, the 3-ton weight restriction here, if I can ask here, is that subject to access for other vehicles, larger vehicles who need access to properties in the front, such as delivery vehicles?
Yes, any weight limit comes with a caveat that is except for access. So any vehicles, for example, an Amazon delivery van, which is 3.5 ton, would be able to access any of those areas where it needs to make a delivery.
And is a bus over the weight of 3 tons to be delivering and picking up?
It would be, but gross vehicle weight applies to HGVs basically, or lorries. So it wouldn't affect buses.
Forgive me the question.
No, that's a sensible
And
question.
we're looking at just clarity, we're looking at Spa Road roundabout, not Spa roundabout.
It'd be
The current roundabout at the end of Snowbury Lane,
yes.
rather than the roundabout which is known as the Spa roundabout, which is further up.
Is that the
Yeah,
Western Way?
that's it.
The Western Way, this is the Spa. So you've got Spa Road roundabout and Spa roundabout.
Right.
Thanks.
Okay. Councillor.
So can I just get something clear? If, as things stand at the moment with your proposal, who would bear the cost of this order and this change?
I'm not sure on that actually, Linda. Could you
I think it's split between.
split
taxi
between
and
the two?
finance.
Yeah.
Right, because it just seems to me like a number of things that we discussed, that surely this should have been taken into account in the planning of the road. When the new road was put in, or the new development road was put in, surely, the people responsible for planning the area should have taken this into account. So it should just be added on as an omission and taken care of as part of the general road change, I would suggest.
Well, the argument may well be from highways that there isn't actually a requirement to impose either of those two measures on Snowbury Lane and that small section of Eastern Way. but I'm just suggesting from a resident's point of view, it's something that they probably would like to see implemented because it would reduce the amounts and the speed of the traffic along that road.
My last,
Yeah.
my last comment then is that it's a pity that county couldn't have actually taken it into account for the same reasons you have.
I think on that one, on that, initially, that road's been used for all vehicles, and then to change it, obviously it's gonna be a change of order anyway, but having that road used for those vehicles anyway, they're gonna take it, in fact, well, it's always been used for that. It's we don't need to change it, it's just most of the vehicles are gonna be used for the new one now, so I think you will get less, but it would be better if we implement something like this.
We legislate it for
Definitely.
Yeah.
So
I
that,
just, I can see where Colin's coming from, I agree what he's saying.
so are we, can we propose that we are to go ahead with this, that the town council would endorse this, or, yeah?
Yeah, with the amendment that to extend it to.
Extend Simon's amendment, extended it, what,
The way around about.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, can I propose, you Simon, seconded? Thank you. Jack,
I didn't get who seconded it, sorry.
Jack,
So it's proposed by.
so Jack Early. And can I have a vote, please? It's unanimous.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
I'm quiet for a minute. I persevere.
Okay, so we go back to our planning applications. Our planning application, we have a single one. In your paperwork, there's one item, there's one Church Lane Melton. And let me just get to mine. What number? What did you want?
The agenda, currently the application is in the agenda, but the detail of it is.
So it's conservatory, it's this application number 07899, One Church Lane, Melton, conservatory corridor extension. It's a slight amendment, it's just. It's like the main building is joining up with the garage, or the out buildings as such. Any comments, anyone, any?
Will it be seen from the road? I'm not quite sure which way it is easy from where it's on. So will it be seen from the road, or will it be down the back of the garden? Because I know they've got long gardens down there. One district and then
Looks to me like it's behind the park.
yeah, that's what it looks like to me. I just wanted to make sure. And have there been any objections from any of the neighbours?
No, I've never checked it before, but this consultation deadline hasn't gone in yet, so.
So just check for the any objections.
Finish check now.
The other one is really just the general layout of the building as such. Just the
No, there's no comments.
so if we look at the side, we want to look at site plans, no measures of block. See what that is. What's your location plan? Go for that.
All that we've got on the lines, and there are no comments at the moment. We close to the plan.
So we've got the location plan here.
This is
not the corner, isn't it?
Just checking on
That's that one, all right? Not much. That's church. Is that the one? The church lane.
No, it's church.
Just one church lane and SN 1270E.
You're going around in circles there, Jack.
One church lane, that's a drawing. It doesn't look very obvious.
We're still live, the screen's come off.
This is going up.
Foresters.
Oh, right, the forest was
Google Maps.
We get a super echo here, you talk, get it out to the speaker.
Well, that's what I was thinking, yeah, you must be
Yeah,
just
half a second.
actually behind the forest. So it see that road. So it looks like it's behind the forest.
Yes.
So the rear of the extension is going to be behind the forest, so it's not going to be seen.
Yes.
Well,
You're happy?
from that point of view, I've got no objections because, it can't be seen, it's not going to spoil the road, there's quite a few little cottages around there. And it's all a bit higgledy-piggledy, I'm going to try to deliver and knock on doors down there, you get lost back from this. But yeah, if it can't be seen, I'm quite happy.
Okay, proposal? Happy? Safi? Second to Simon? Vote please, thank you. All happy?
Not that gives them permission to build, I mean.
There aren't any. Okay,
That's just that we
just for notes then, planning decisions, point 5. You need to go through them all.
Unless members want
Any-
to, but.
Any comments on any of these proposals? We have got, we come down to an appeal.
Oh, can I just comment on one of the things that's come back to us?
Yeah.
Which is the one on the land adjacent to the electric substation Western Way.
I'm glad you did this because I was going to comment on that as well.
And I mean, we objected, I see the decision was refused. I note this could be somewhat relevant to some of the Spa Court stuff that comes up later, because that also is talking about a very difficult access very close to a roundabout.
Okay, noted. And I just noted this yesterday, they had bulldozers in there moving land towards the river to look like build a bund to stop the water, and I don't know who was doing that, them or, and I watched it going on for about a minute or so.
But where does that water go to? I don't know.
Absolutely, well, it's like I said, they're actually making a better home for themselves when they shouldn't be there. And obviously this will go now to back to planning anyway. Yeah. Okay, anything else on those, comment and notes on any of those applications? So we've gone down to, okay, so if we go to item number 6, planning appeal notification 30 St Michael's Road, Melton, pages 7 and 8. Members, we voted to refuse, object to this on those grounds that are listed, numbers 1 to 4, loss of green space, high waste grounds, so that was traffic approaching from the direction of the school, will not be able to see the vehicles leaving the property, highways grounds, traffic approaching from the north, and highways grounds again. Comments? We go back with the same, any members got any different opinions on that, or just go back with the same opinion that we are?
I think we go back with the, Michael, we go back with the same opinion.
Yeah.
And I went down there and had a further look, and I found myself, it's very interesting, I believe this planning application might be particularly put in by someone who doesn't actually own the land which the application is being put in. That's perfectly legal for them to do.
Yes, it is, isn't it? But as I said, it's from our original.
This is a very interesting situation, and that's just merely an observation.
Okay, so Colin.
Does it make, I've been meaning to look at it, does it affect at all the current pretty dire school situation? Dropping off and
Not really.
not in any way, because I've had an email recently about.
They may end up still parking on what will not be, will be even more of a blind corner when they pick up, because it will be fenced all the way around. You won't be able to see as far. Then so it will still make it a worse parking and highways issue
So it's still going to exacerbate it.
Yeah,
Yes, that's,
Yes, but minimally,
yes,
because it's quite a way up from the school, up one of the cul-de-sacs.
but I know for a fact, because I live there, they park everywhere. Now they can't park in the West End, they park everywhere at 3 o'clock to pick up. So it's a very very busy area, like all schools area, and parents do what's comfortable for them rather than what's probably legal. Okay, Sue.
Actually, I just wondered whether that was an extra point that you just made, whether we ought to put that on.
it's on there already.
Is it? What about the fencing?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can go back with our original response.
Yeah.
We're not changing, we haven't changed our minds at all. Can I propose that?
I second.
Okay, proposed by myself, seconded by Councillor Irving. And vote please. And that's unanimous. Okay. So item 7, community area transport group track G, 7.1. So that's just to note the budget, really, which comes back to yeah, there's a budget there on where we are. Any questions or queries on that budget?
No, so it's really helpful that you've got this. Thank you.
No, I just thought there's a lot to plan to. You know,
There's quite a lot there,
but
yes.
I was quite relieved to know that it hasn't.
Yeah.
So item 7.2 we've done. 7.3 highways improvement request, Wharf Court, Spy Road, Melksham, pages 15 and 16. Consider the attached installation of signage to indicate concealed entrance at Spy Road and Wharf Court.
Well, I can speak. It isn't an easy turn, you do have to take care. But to be perfectly honest, it's not any worse than lots and lots of other gateways and roads around Melksham. Even allowing for the fact that there's a bit of a hump, because people do have to slow down a bit because they know there's a roundabout today. And we had a long conversation about this when Wharf Court was being I can't remember what was being built or anyway, but I think it was when Meadow Street was being built, and there was an awful lot of talk about the imminent danger at that point when Meadow Street was being built. And highways are reluctant to do anything about it. They don't seem to think that it's necessary to change anything there. But I mean, I suppose it's always worth checking and asking again, especially in light of the speed thing.
I don't think it's speed.
Yeah. But I suspect it will end up being in the 85th percentile, and it's just the usual few people that drive down there carelessly and don't care, and are so few that it becomes not a problem, if you see what I mean.
Just sorry, after you, Colin.
I don't think it's that few, is it? Because I'm not quite sure what the correction is on the speed report. It was mentioned that there was a correction, but there's no indication of what it was, so I didn't know what to compare it with. But it looks like up to 133 cars are doing 35 miles or more an hour down that bit of road.
Oh,
Which, unless I'm interpreting the figures incorrectly, but it looks to me to be pretty serious when you look at that part of the road with the two home on each side.
Is that over a 24-hour period? Or over what period is that?
Right, well, what is it say?
7 days.
You seem to make more sense.
It's a 7-day period.
It's 7 days.
Oh, right, okay.
Can somebody help me?
Over 35.
Yeah, over 35. I worked out that it was 133 a day, but maybe that's not.
I worked out it was 928 per week.
Oh, right, okay.
Well, that would be about the same then.
Yes.
35 miles an hour, that number of cars a day, I would say was
I mean,
unacceptable.
this is very interesting. I mean, this falls into that other item there, which is 7.8, because the two come together.
Yeah.
Because the 7.8 correction, and that's the one where last time we were told that 75% of vehicles were doing over 35 miles an hour. And that was corrected to 2.4% of vehicles are doing over 35 miles an hour.
Right, so from
I think there was an error with cut and paste, that was a very serious difference.
Big one.
However, statistically, you look at 2.4% and say, oh, that's not much. But that is of 23,000 vehicles in a week, which is actually 552 vehicles doing over 35 miles an hour in a 30 mile an hour area. Furthermore, where they are extremely close to a roundabout.
Yeah.
And I believe that the measuring device was put there because that's where you get the highest percentage of people speeding, not further down the road, because if you put it near the Coronation Road, Kenilworth Road corner, for example, so many people are slowing down there, that the numbers will be even lower, even though the people who are speeding much faster past there. So it's a difficult way to know where to put the thing. But I mean, 552 vehicles will make 376 the other. And that's at a point where vehicles are slowing down or speeding up for that mini roundabout on the corner of, what is it, New Lawns and whatever it is called. As a driver that comes through there, you've got to watch them. You're concentrating on the roundabout as you come to it, and you've got that side entrance coming in, which really you don't concentrate on or see very much there. So there's an issue. Extra signage, don't know whether extra signage is going to do you any good.
Well, Councillor Rainey, you're next. Sorry.
I was just going to explain, having been out with the Wiltshire highways officers to look at deployment of things like metro counts and things like that, my kids, about what the exact process it is to try and get the best correlation of data. So we looked at more Wiltshire roads, and it is actually it's far more complicated, I think, if you've not been out and you realise it would be. It's not just a case going, oh right, yeah, that's a great place to put it. You've got to have an electricity source to power it, you've got to keep away from other junctions coming onto it, turn off of it. So it is always going to be a tricky one to get to in the right place.
There is no good place on Spa Road, even though there's a
Not at
problem.
all, no.
Not with the garage as well.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
I think there definitely is a problem here, and near that roundabout near the hospital, where all too often if you're coming out of the hospital, people to the right just don't look, power straight through, so you find yourself having to give way to the left coming out of the hospital. However, I'm not convinced that a sign will help, because we have our SID that occasionally gets pointed at. Plus there is also, if you're travelling north on the road, on the right hand side, there is already a warning sign saying that elderly people are walking up and down there, sort of pensioner triangle, which is, I always thought, a rather bizarre road sign to have. But if drivers are given those warnings and an indication of their speed, and they still at a mini roundabout, 500 a week going about 35, I don't think that a further sign saying this is dangerous is going to stop them, because
no.
What we need is action, where people with little guns to actually catch people and find them. But when word gets round, that usually.
Well, actually, so yeah, interesting that the new PCC, Philip Wilkinson, is rolling out sort of a more proactive community speed watch group. Personally speaking, I'm not really too comfortable giving civilians the right to give you speeding tickets, but that's what he's doing.
Oh, right.
And these people will be able to issue out fixed penalty notices. So if
Really?
yeah, which but it is.
No, it has to go back to the police and
And they will it'll be issued from them, but it's essentially so before
Oh, I
you
thought it
would
was an education thing. I didn't realise it could actually lead to an FPN.
this, as I understand it, so okay, well, as I said before, there would be the metric count, they would give they would ascertain how many people are speeding, that would go back to the police, and they would come back and do spot checks there. I understand these new ones can go back to the police and lead for a fine from a civilian using a camera, there might be Correct.
Just let.
Yeah, it's not,
Councillor-
it's not down to the civilian to make the decision as to whether that person gets, they will correlate data, so they will literally send in their data that day of what vehicle, what speed, what time, which direction of travel. Then the decision then made, whether that person is given a letter written to warning them about their behaviour. If there was like multiple, or if it was excessively speeding, so let's say 30 mile an hour zone and somebody was doing 70 down it, you're pretty darn sure the police will never find this. Ultimately, it's not down to the community speed watch group to be
They're just giving
Vigilante.
information, they're sending
Correct, they
data.
give the information.
If I just come back on that there, forgive me though, that is just a legal mechanism because obviously a civilian can't legally give you a fine. The fact that he has stated to the police and crime panel that this will be self-funding and it will be expanded off the back of the fines, to me shows that that's just a legal way of getting around the fact they're going to issue these. So, but anyway, but in this instance, of course, that is something that we could try and promote and encourage, is if the community around there could get involved in that.
Well, if, my point on this is that if the Wharf Court residents are making, is it them or their family who are querying this? Because if it's them, we won't be getting them coming out with cameras, I'm quite sure. Because it's a similar issue to Coronation Road, where the last meeting we wrote was being written to the residents to form an action group to do this. Would we be looking for the same from Wharf Court to do that? Sue?
I thought we said that we were going to get different people to do different areas. Isn't that suggested at one point?
It was, yes. I made the point that we brought it up with the person coordinating community speed watch, that in several cases, people might feel uncomfortable about doing that on their doorstep. So it is quite acceptable for a group from another part of town to perform community speed watch somewhere else. I was just making the point that is quite acceptable. And in a lot of places, where you've got a lot of through traffic, it's not quite so sensitive. But if it's in an area where there's a high chance that people are actually blocking neighbours and so on, a lot of people understandably don't want to get involved in that.
On that, as part of our last resolution or last minutes, I'm sure I read that the residents of Coronation Road will be asked to form a speed watch group, but then they wouldn't be doing a speed watch on their road.
No.
Okay, it's similar to this issue. As such as what we'd asked, but that would be one. I think they need to know that they won't be in charge of policing their own streets as such. And I don't think they'll understand. I don't know if they would want to, but we could ask the same issue. I think exactly the same. We do the same proposals.
I mean,
Is there anything else that anyone is always doing?
these two, 7.3 and 7.8, are about the same spot, so they're very much related, aren't they? One of the things I noticed on the signage there, as you approach into town from out of town, which I think is the northwest bound, there were the two signs on the right hand side, as Councillor Goodman pointed out, one pointing out you've got old people around. The other one was a diagram showing a mini roundabout, that does not show on it those two side roads, those side exits. So it gives the false impression that the next junction coming up is the roundabout. And if that sign were to be slightly bigger and actually geographically correct, it might actually help solve the problem without any extra signage.
So more accurate signage then, a map on the side.
Yes. I mean, the sign, you know, you have sort of signs, there's a standard range of signs, and there's other signs that you probably see them occasionally, there's something a bit different on that one, there's something a bit different. It just doesn't geographically relate what you're coming to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what maybe needs to go to then is a review of the sign, suggested review of the signage along Spa Road leading to Wolf Court, possibly further.
The same, or we could perhaps help them along a bit by sending a little diagram of what we would like them to do, you know, like as Graham just suggested, you know, something a little bit more accurate.
Yeah, anything that we can do, then they can review it.
Existing sign with the mini roundabout and stuff shown there, and the two side sheets, just the words concealed entrances on below it. So it's not an extra sign, it's just a replace something which is actually.
A more accurate picture.
Accurate.
Would we be looking at a similar request for speed watch as well?
Well, yes, I mean, if there are people who will do it, let's get some people
Okay,
down
so we
there
could
to,
put that
because
in there as well.
that would be a quick fix, wouldn't it?
So we'd recommend review of the signage and review of a speed watch.
I mean, there's one of the sits there at the moment, and it's noticeable how it starts off in red, and it goes green as people approach it.
Yeah.
Okay, so propose that we review the signage and we look into a speed watch for that area. So I'll propose that, seconded by Sue. And can I have a vote, please? We'll go to catchy. This should all go signed.
For me, I think we might have to break that first down to two.
Okay.
So one to the catchy first, and then 7.8 with the.
Okay.
With the, yeah.
I was collating two issues there. Sorry, yeah. So the first point then for 7.3, again, review of signage.
Would you like me, Graham, to draw a little diagram of what we think it should be?
Well, I think that would only help. So proposed, would that, Graham?
Yes, I've had.
And Clark, would you give a second?
Yeah.
And should we have a vote? That's 7.3. We go on to 7.8.
So they're recommending this request.
Yes, request for review of a signage.
Should have said place.
Yeah.
I think, check for simplicity, should we stick with the agenda
Yeah.
rather than go on
Absolutely.
to it when it goes?
We can,
Just
we'll come back to,
the
we'll
circuits
know
of
what
minutes. Yeah.
we'll know what we've said. We'll go to 7.4. We did 7.8. Okay, highways improvement request, corner of Lapwing Road and Linnets Lane, Melksham. To consider the attached request submitted for the installation of railings or metal bollards at that corner of Lapwing Road and Linnet to increase the pedestrian safety. Page 17-18 in your notes. I drove down there today, just have a look, and there is no pavement where the brick, where the road has been raised to really slow traffic down. It's now in line and the same height as the pavement, and you would not know where the road started or finished, which is for me quite worrying in some respects, and it is throughout that whole estate. There are corners just like that.
The design of those new estates with those cobbled roads and things is supposed to limit villages and narrow roads and cut down on the speed of the traffic, which I think they do quite effectively.
Yeah.
But of course, the builders want to make money, so they cram so many houses in that there's not a lot of room for pavements.
There's not a lot of room for pavements, and there's lots of cars,
And
which
there's lots of
again
cars,
hide
yeah.
lots of viewing towards those corners or whatever. Colin?
So again, we are being looked at to put something right that has been created by people that are supposed to know what they're doing.
You may not want to hear.
Yeah, I know.
The reason this is done is actually so that it's supposed to slow drivers down, because it doesn't look, you can't see where the road ends and the pavement starts. So psychologically, the highways and all people that do all the work on mapping and stuff think that psychologically a driver will be on driving along, and because there isn't any differentiation, they can't see it, so they're more careful. This is not design fault, this is actually designed in.
Designed in, which I again personally, I'd say from the chair, I find ludicrous. Because you've then got people who've got no idea where the pavement is, and when you mounted the pavement and realise, oh, I shouldn't be there because I've now mounted the pavement, you don't know you're doing it, and it's still your fault.
Yeah.
That's
No, I'm just wondering about what Linda said, then if we put the railings there, are we gonna have people driving faster?
Oh, we won't do that, they'll probably knock them down.
I mean, there are corners on that estate and other estates where they have put bollards. That's what they've got individual bollards rather than railings
Yeah.
as such. Bollards or railings will deflect any, or hopefully deflect anyone going into any pedestrians as such, and stop them doing it. But again,
Bollards aren't too expensive.
No, I think bollard as well, and when you get the children climbing up the railings.
Yeah. it becomes a plaything rather than an actually.
They're too busy with their iPads.
I think, as I said, this is I don't know if this, once we've done one of these, we will end up looking at all of them. But there is no right or wrong in planning or highways. It seems it's the go-to thing at the moment.
I suppose also, Chair, just to highlight, I know we have got some money left in the budget, but with the stuff that we proposed already, that's going to take a lot of that money up.
Yeah.
So we might be in a situation where we might have to
look at what we can do.
What we can do with the budget we've got. So we've got quite a few.
About 500 quid last time I had one
Yeah.
stuck in the road.
And we've only got about £2,000 left in the budget. So with the
Okay, I suggest with what is actually the planning logic at the moment. It's not against planning or highways logic, is it, for what they're doing? Something that we I can't think what we can do from this.
What's the signage, you know?
Well, it's all 20 miles an hour around there as well. What more can we do?
Yeah.
I suppose, sorry, Chair.
Yeah, sorry.
If we, can I just, we might just spend some numbers, ask Mike as the Wiltshire Councillor for that area, is there anything that was mentioned by residents that you would like to say for that area that?
I've not had it raised with me, but again, like Gary, I've been around there and had a drive around and had a look at it. And as Linda said, that's the way the street scene is designed these days. And the intention is to make people think and slow down and be more cautious. And I have to say, if you're a sensible, cautious driver driving around that estate, it shouldn't be an issue. But then we're in a position where we're trying to legislate for the minority who don't drive sensibly into the road conditions. I haven't, as I said, I haven't been approached with this. Clearly, because it's my area, I would support a request from one of the residents in that area. But as somebody else has just pointed out, I think if you do these, there's a potential that not necessarily open the floodgates as such, but there'll be similar requests for other areas within that state, as is the case at Goldfinch Road. I noticed there's some
I was going to mention.
put in there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's Goldfinch Road, not in Melksham East, but is it by any chance in Melksham without? So
Yeah, it's in East.
it is in
Yeah,
East.
it is.
I don't remember it coming through.
Well, previously it would have all been within Melksham without, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's why it's there then, yeah.
Okay, I don't think, as I said, from what we've discussed, we can't actually make a decision on this. We can wording would we use to say we understand the issue. It's a Wiltshire Council transport regulation as such on how they designed.
Is it worth asking if highways could just check it out?
Yeah, I'll speak to that sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
We should probably also be mindful when we get new applications for housing developments coming through.
But it's one more thing to remember, isn't it,
It
Simon?
is.
Yeah,
We've
you
got
do
lots
it
of
as you
those
go.
actions that next.
Yeah.
Okay.
Things change. don't they?
Okay. So 7.5, order alerts we've done. 7.6, highways improvement request, vehicle access to Snarton Farm, Melksham. Pages 21, 22. Consider the attached request submitted for the installation of signage on the A3102 to direct HTV drivers to Snarton Farm, Melksham.
And sat navs as well, because we've had lots of trouble with, well, we used to, with lorries going down Sarton Lane. I can see them from my house and my bedroom window, you can watch the lorries go down there and then we back up again. So that's where the sat nav tells them to go.
Okay, Michael?
Sorry, to interrupt. Can I just point out one thing? On the garage on the corner,
Yes,
they've got a section of Arco barrier, which you've probably noticed, and it occurs to me that would be an ideal spot if you could get the permission of the garage owner to put a sign on there directing HGVs for Snelton Lane to the left. That,
is that before, we might need to do a map of this, because I went down there today, that their signage is actually getting, the garage's signage is actually getting mixed
I
up.
know exactly where my
Yeah.
Mark wants it, so I walked in with it, when I went to visit Mr Mortimer, at Sandwich Road.
yeah.
Mark and I walked to Snelton, and he's actually picked a spot that the sign would be, and it would be a little further back from the garage. The garage might be an extra sign, but I think the lorry would be turning
Yeah, we need-
possibly. But the signage is not far from where our current SID is located, and there is a post that lends itself. And Mark Stanley said that would be acceptable from the highway,
Okay.
and it would direct people straight up to the roundabout to go down Western Way.
I just thought potentially that might be a cheaper option. You might even get Mr. Stainer at Snelton Farm to pay for it and stick something there.
God bless him.
Where did you put that?
No chance.
Well, you never know. It's worth asking.
Oh, right, yeah, we don't ask, we don't get.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've discussed this with the highways, and they're looking at putting that.
Yeah, they've said where the sign could go if town council is supportive of the requests, of course.
So are we mindful to support this request of signage? We don't really want HGVs going down that road or making the turning to go down that road, because once they've made the turning, that's the hardest bit, is backing up.
Oh, yeah.
So it needs that signage on the main road. So are we happy to propose, Simon? Propose, seconded?
No second.
Jack? A vote, please. Thank you.
Over the road.
Over the road, straight from the garage, is Maple Close. Those who don't know, members are asked to consider the entry into negotiations with Welsh Council and the resident who has offered a section of his garden to enable the widening of the footway. The town clerk will give a verbal report.
Yeah. I've also spoken to Mark Stanley, and at first he was not sure how much financial support that Wiltshire could give. He's now got back to me and said that CapG could assist with the county solicitor fees, which are likely to be around 2,000, because there'll be some legal work to do to transfer the land. The cost of constructing the extended footway and the reinstatement of a boundary division, whether that be a hedge, fence or wall covering the length of land being dedicated. They're looking at a 10-metre length, and CapG would contribute towards a boundary wall of 10 metres. Work undertaken beyond this length, which he suspects the landowner would request, would need to be recharged in full. So we could probably enter into an agreement with Wiltshire and Mr Millard, who's actually suggested he might contribute towards the reinstatement of the wall. Because currently it's closed board fencing with concrete pillars, and he would like a retaining wall. For the safety that this provides of him, given his land for no known fee, will make a huge difference to that corner, because I have stood there and it's
Very
dreadful.
tight.
Really tight. You can't see,
Yeah.
you know, and as I was stood there talking to Mr Millard, a lady was walking up Maple Close, and a father with a young toddler on a scooter was coming the other way. Now luckily the lady saw these two coming along, and she hooked in behind me and said, sorry, I've just got to do this so these can get past safely. Now that's crazy. So
And it's a very busy road, we know that.
There was a lot of tire marks, bicycle marks.
yeah, and you know, you've got hardly anything, and then you're out onto the A3 102, and then the lorries trying to go down Snarble. It's just
Okay. So are we all in favour of supporting this request? CapG, Which, or,
I mean, Catchy have sort of said yes to it. I
We
think
need to
tonight
work
what members need to do, I don't know how much it will cost you or haven't finalised all the figures, because I need to find out what Wiltshire Council are going to contribute, what Mr Morton has had to, Mr Millard has had to contribute. And then
so we're going to revisit this when you've got those figures. I assume,
yeah,
or yes,
I can
I
get
think
that
'cause it's
by
going to
3
be,
weeks, yeah, so
yeah,
I'll
so
need a
we'll revisit it
resolution
on the next
to
meeting.
proceed, because I emailed a while ago after I met Mr Millard with a sort of solution, not knowing whether or not Wiltshire Council, i.e. Mark Stanley, would agree to doing a three-way thing. He has now. I did work on it.
Councillor Morton.
Can we not agree to a certain limit so that Linda can get on and do it, so that doesn't have to come with
Is it in the budget? I think we need 3 weeks. I think.
It's not.
It will cost more than 3,000, but in the next.
So I've got 7.5 in next year's, but I just wondered if I can have a look at what you've got left at the end of the year and see if there's any way you can.
And I think in 3 weeks' time we can look at it anyway. So again, if what we've got, just get the figures.
Fingers crossed we might have an underspend somewhere.
Yes.
Council
Just
put
what
a
I
line
was
in
gonna
it.
say, have we got any options?
That's what I'll have a look at.
Okay.
But as long as it's just really a resolution to support the clerk getting all the work.
Okay.
done.
Well, I propose that resolution. then.
And I'll
Seconded. Pat seconded, and can I have a vote? Hearing on the clerk.
Yeah.
Okay, make a proposed correction to, so 7.8, we revisit. Corrections, traffic survey results, fire rate, etc. So, our decision was to look at a speed watch. So can I have a proposal that we look, we ask. Is it?
Does what?
For a speed watch group or residents to be asked about speed watch forming a group?
Is there one in existence?
Melton hasn't got one, there's a
Or
very
speed
active
in-
one where I live, and they're all being ex-residents.
It's, as I said, similar to a Coronation Road, we need to ask the residents, are they,
It will probably be well received by the residents, to declare, which I have one.
I just wonder whether, rather than doing it in certain areas, I mean, there might be people who'd be interested in being part of community speed watch, but where they live have not got an issue. But
absolutely,
they'd be happy to support the community.
working,
Yeah.
yeah,
Why
working
don't we
towards
do
that.
a community-wide, we'd like to start community speed watch groups, we can provide all
I
the
would
training.
suspect, knowing from the residents on Spa Road, that they'd be happy to, probably happy to monitor their own road.
Yeah, I think that's what we want to get away from though, but I'm sure I don't, that there'll be a plan of action for what can and can't happen. Is it not? Yeah.
There's a mechanism already in
Okay.
place.
Okay, Simon?
So just to say, I think citing the Phoenix example, I think there are probably certain residents on Spark Road that would love to get out there with the car.
You should have done that.
They've already been out there.
Yeah, I think Pat,
Well, I was just going to say.
Just take a hairdryer out.
Highly visible.
Yeah, I think we should do a community-wide.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm not Irish.
so we'll propose that we are,
A good idea.
yes, that we ask to form a community-wide speed watch group. And then they can go out to wherever. Subject to what the rules are in place.
Yeah, no, I
Yes.
know.
Let's look at the system,
Familiar with the system.
I think we should, something we should use carefully rather than have speed watches and speed cameras all over the place. We just have a sort of few there, say, hey, there's a few places that we're looking at this.
Oh, you mean-
And that comes on Spa, a couple of points on Spa Road are some of them.
I think, yeah, if I can
Yeah,
say that, that I think the system, I think the mechanism takes all this into account. We need to look at
Look at
whether,
mechanisms.
the way it's done now, see whether that embraces what we're looking for.
But you start looking, I mean, there are accident maps of Wiltshire, which I've not looked at recently as the area. And you can look at certain things at certain times. The Spa Road, all along its length, there's an accident here, there's somebody killed here, there's an accident here, there's an accident here. And it's probably about the worst in Melbourne.
Okay, Sue, did you want to?
Yeah, sorry, I'm probably going back, but I'm looking at page 5 of my 191 traffic, the traffic survey results with Union Street not mentioned in that. It's just not listed.
Yeah.
It's not listed in the results of the traffic survey.
Within the third line, isn't it?
So yeah, we resolved, because if you remember, Councillor Ellis, we were talking about different solutions and perhaps whether you go down with, we're revisiting that one, I think, with.
It's gone to Catchy,
Gone to
20 mile an hour
Catchy,
for now. I can report that Mark Stanley said the ideas that the committee came forward with were not workable because some people have got drives up there. So, you know, they like the bollards in the middle or allowing access to the car park. But the 20 mile an hour proposal's gone to Catchy.
Oh, has it? Yeah, thank you.
So do we ask the clerk to come back with further information on the forming of speed watch groups really, so we can make decision on that going forward?
Perhaps the first step is contacting Wiltshire Police and ask them to mechanism of how to do it.
Yeah, and we just get that back to the committee.
Because there are criteria for operating community speed watch.
What, sorry, Chair, what was the proposal that was saying?
So we'll propose it to the town clerk.
I'll come back with
Come
some
back with
information on form
Yeah.
community speed watch teams.
Thank you. So proposed,
Oh, we got it,
Councillor,
I'm
well done.
proposing.
Seconded by Councillor Ellis and voted. Right. That's unanimous. Okay, point 8, proposed pedestrian crossing A350 Western Way Melton, pages 25 to 32. To decide on a response to which council was proposed for a pedestrian crossing for the A350 Western Way. See attached notice to Debra Crossing legal adverts, staggered Toucan Crossing legal advert and ITM statement of reasons. So lots of information there. I think it's just an improvement.
It is, it's an
Not much change.
No, it's very little.
extension of the what do you know?
Yes, we do that. Yes.
Well, it doesn't-
It does, I looked, again, look, it increases the sort of wiggly lines as such, the zigzag lines from 31 to 41 metres in one direction and 35 to 65 in the other. So it's obviously just giving forewarning to traffic.
Sensible technicality.
Yeah.
Does it actually also resurface and restructure the road so there's not got any great pools of water on the thing?
I can't answer
So that
that
when we
one.
go down to look at it, we don't get ourselves drowned. again.
You need to report that in my walk track.
So
You need to report it in my walk track.
So we can support that,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, point 9. Reinstatement of electric vehicle charging points, King Street Car Park. To note the letter sent to Wiltshire Council from the town clerk and response from Councillor McClelland of Wiltshire Council regarding reinstatement of electric vehicle charging points in King Street Car Park. See the attached. Comments? Councillor Rayleigh.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
We are.
Right, I have to thank you, Linda, for sending the letter, first of all. There are some really, for me, some very disappointing replies in the letter from Wiltshire County Council. Obviously, we're all massively frustrated with how long it's been taking. You know, in fact, the tender has not even yet gone out to King Street. That is, you know, we're now almost a year that unit has been out of use. Only thing I will say that's slightly positive in there is that they are looking to get the 54 kilowatt unit in there, so that actually is good. It'll be a decent charging point when it eventually appears. The other way around that is, however, this destination charging points, I think it's very clear that Wiltshire County Council have got absolutely no interest beyond the King Street car park at looking at public provision for charging. They are purely looking now at public or private sector providing these points. And that, I think, is incredibly disappointing. We're not a big town that has a lot of big businesses and shops with big car parks where people are coming along and doing their shopping. So that's very sad to hear that. I would hope that we would support Motion Our Town Park in investigating what grants are available to us and what actually, because we're going to have to take this on ourselves and look for alternative means of getting charging points fitted, because frankly, it's not going to come from the county council level. The answer around the campus is probably the most disappointing thing for me, and I had to do a lot of digging to actually get some answers as to why we ended up with 7 kilowatt units, which quite frankly are no better than you would fit on a house. So your average domestic house would be a 3.5 kilowatt or 7 kilowatt. And I was disappointed when we went on the campus tour. Graham will probably remember and see me asking questions about where we're going to get high level of charging units fitted because it's three-phase electrics, and oh yeah, that'd be great, yeah, that'd be top end. Quite frankly, 7 kilowatts is not top end. And I was very confused as to a bit about because the electric supply wasn't good enough to run anymore. However, I've managed to get answers now as to why the electric supply can't operate a higher powered unit, and that's because they're running them off an existing old substation. So they're not using electric source from the campus, they're using what's there already. And the answer I got was that potentially in a few years' time, it could be looked at in terms of improving or a new substation. Well, in a few years' time, you're going to have those units, so 7 kilowatt units with the way electric vehicle technology is moving on in the kilowatts per hour that these vehicles can take. Those 7 kilowatt units within 2 years are really going to be obsolete. Yeah, they will be obsolete. So we are going to be left with equipment again, a bit like used car park, which is going to be pretty much next to useless. I would like to have seen at least 22 kilowatt charging points have gone into the campus. This then leaves me to worry what happens at Melksham House, and if they're talking about this being potentially a business hub and things like that, are we then staring down the barrel of Melksham House also having 7 kilowatt units? And again, that's really not going to be modern enough for the way the vehicle market and technology is moving. So that's
Any other comments? Simon?
To agree with a lot of what Councillor Rayleigh has identified, and I think that we as a town council, one of the few sort of promising things I got from that response was that Wiltshire Council are amenable to us looking to have EV points installed on their land. And I think we should really hold them to that offer.
Yeah.
And if we try and get funding from different organisations and perhaps even contact our member of parliament for any grant funding that comes centrally, I think this is probably something as a town we're going to have to take very seriously in looking at the infrastructure over the Melksham area and where we can best deploy these. One thing I was curious about exploring, and I thank you for looking into this in such detail. If it's a substation, and how much do Wiltshire Council think this is going to cost to upgrade? Because to my mind, it would be far more beneficial to have just one high-powered charger than 7 redundant ones. And if that means you have to upgrade the substation, have one good one, and we can build from that. Yeah, I think that having a charging point that will be redundant in a matter of years and frankly useless for, so I'll shut up in a second, but the fact that if you go to a leisure centre, you're there for half an hour to an hour whilst you swim, having such a low capacity charging point makes it a waste of a parking space to my mind.
Yeah, just if I can come in on the substation piece, apparently it was because if they were to go, this was what I was told, if they were to make improvements to the existing substation to be able to take higher powered charging units, that could potentially delay the opening of the campus. That's what I was told. It's a little bit disappointing that this wasn't thought of back all that time ago.
It is, but the reverse logic is that would they then have to close the campus when they come to upgrade?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, if it delays the installation of the charging points, then that's regrettable, but so be it. But to install
Good news story though, isn't it? Really, they could sort of spin that in the positive, Mike, couldn't they?
So who remembers the football stadium opening, or rather not opening?
You know, that was due to electricity supply, isn't it?
So I mean, just say I really support Councillor Raven. I think that we as a council should probably think a bit more seriously about where we deploy these strategic and putting our money where our mouth is in future budgets. Be looking to fund this properly.
Well, I agree with the motion to investigate funding from
Yeah, start
definitely. Also, we should encourage Wiltshire Council to says, however, with regard to costings, this could be subject to change. So that we want that change, that they're going to contribute more or improve the standard of both the King Street car park, but more so the campus. And that's what we've really got. This one looks okay, the 44, as you said, but the campus seems that should be our focal point. So
I would say, is there any way we could get the substation done, a bit delayed the opening of campus, so be it. That won't be within our remit.
Or Wiltshire Council.
I've been very clearly told by the Union Councillor that that is not on the cards.
well, I said the town clerk is already investigating funding. We as a council, as Simon has mentioned, will look to the future of how we can improve EV points within the town, and using our budgets to make that happen as a priority going forward.
And also those serious consideration when they.
Yeah, Simon says
because
something
of
to
the
do
amount
with
of
terms
development
coming.
action.
Yeah.
That development that action is taking, we can dictate standards.
Yeah. Like just that was really about that again, using the neighbourhood plan again to drive this forward, and that will dictate a lot of what can and can't happen. And it's working, so we've got to keep pushing that.
Yeah, just to make the point that I agree with the fundamental, increase in effective electric vehicle charging. What worries me a little bit is that the way the campus car park is being referred to and being talked about as if it's just another car park. I think we need to remember that what we do in that car park really ought to be focused on assisting the use of the campus and the parking of people for using the campus. If that means, if that includes incorporating some vehicle charging, that's great. But I don't think we should look at it as just another car park and just another place for people who go and charge vehicles. It needs to be related to the campus. I think that's really important.
Agree. I mean, primary usage of the parking has got to be for the campus.
Yeah.
The secondary, and that reading what was in the notes from Wiltshire Council with regard to the fees and why they've adopted those fees is really to make more use of the campus and to deter people just turning up to park there for free if it was free parking, to go do the shopping. So I think they are. I think it is another part, but I just think it is part of this, that what you're mentioning as well. But yeah, so we've got the town council, the clerk is investigating funding. Okay.
As you said, in Springfield campus, it's free parking from the caution. Oh, is it?
Okay. Okay. Okay, okay, let me move on to item 10, and then pre-consultation on parking restrictions for the Melksham campus, where we were leading on to consider response to Wiltshire Council proposed amendment to the parking restrictions for the Melksham campus. Colin.
Well, yeah, what worries me about this is it is being referred to as if it's another car park. So just another car park. So the hours are going to be, the charges are going to be the same, and it looks to me as if the times are going to be the same. So if you want to park for 5 hours, you can park in the campus car park just as well as the others. That doesn't tie it. There's nothing that I can see in here that links it to use of the campus. And we could end up with people choosing that car park just because it's closer to the centre of, to the part of town they want. And that just seems crazy to me. I mean, it's when they talk about the patrolling as well, the opening hours of the campus will be between 6 and 10. controlled hours within 8 and 6.
Yeah.
I just don't see how the campus users are being given any preference in this, the setup they're proposing. I'm missing something.
Sorry, I'm just thinking, did we not discuss this at the last meeting?
We had to give a response at the last meeting. They've given a response to our response. Now we are responding to that as such.
Because
So this is now.
Well, that's very different to what was put to us.
yeah, because last time they were saying it was free parking for the campus use, now they're saying they're going to charge for the parking.
Yeah, so they've just.
Council used to get trouble since then. But to be
That
fair,
doesn't
the
matter.
charges are agreeing with the decision to increase parking charges and charge on Sundays. So I wouldn't be surprised if that changes again.
Yeah, because they got the blue badges.
And also charges are going up anyway from what they've already agreed at County Hall. This will be higher than that already.
Yeah, this is the second time I've come across something in print that says 30p. The only car park in town that's got 30p, still got the old label on it, is the one in King Street. So I've tried putting 30p and you do not get a ticket, it's 40p. But I mean, it's worth mentioning because I had an email from Phil Aldred the other day, a couple of days ago, and he also thinks it's still 30p. And, you know.
If they don't know their own parking charges,
Exactly,
it's
I
quite
just-
surprising. Councillor Sankey, can you remind some of your councillors, please? Simon.
Just to speak to that point as well, they also messed up the permit charges on the notices, so the paper permits charges look really reasonable. And you call Wiltshire Council to buy one, and it's a lot more expensive than advertised. And their response is that it's there's some way they can get around not charging the advertised route, which is quite frankly
No, I don't think we can.
ridiculous coming from a council site. But to speak to the point on the agenda.
Yeah.
I take umbrage with Wiltshire Council treating this like any council car park. Because I'm not a customer of the car park, I'll be a customer of the leisure centre. And I just don't think that it's compatible to treat this as just a Wiltshire Council public car park. It's not practice across the county to charge universally in leisure centres. And frankly, if I'm paying to swim, I think that being able to access the leisure centre should be part of that. I think it's nothing but a hidden charge, and to try and sort of cover it with language as, you know, it's our policy to charge for parking across the county, I think is somewhat disingenuous, and I think that we should make that point.
Yes. Particularly not at the leisure centres, yes.
Yeah,
and that's the key. And you again, in any leisure centre, you won't be there for an hour, or you'll be there for a minimum of 2. Because the hour is an activity. You've got to get in there, changed, out, and if you've got a super hot warden, you're going to get a fine.
Yeah, thank you. And also to speak to Rowan's point in that to sort of ensure that this is a campus car park. Validating car parking in leisure centres, I understand, by lots of councils across the country, and it's incredibly easy to do.
There will be new parking machines, Simon, over the next 3 years. They're planning to put in all new car parking machines. I listened to the whole of the Wiltshire Council on Tuesday. I
Lucky you.
It went on for a while, so
yeah, I lost contact at 6:30.
So did I, and I was there.
I lost it before then, and I was there.
Yeah, but the point is that there will be new car parking machines, and they're supposed to be up to it. It does say here that they're going to be doing, where was it? I just saw it. A solar powered parking machine. So with any luck.
I don't think it's the parking machines as such, I think it's the cost of using the space.
Yeah, but it may well also, because they're going to be super duper, apparently, it might have some means of detecting who's where, I don't know, with tickets or something, I don't know.
Soon.
I thought we put forward suggesting that, you know, you're gonna have to enter the registration. when you're ready.
Yeah, like the ones at County Hall.
Yeah.
Like the King's Arms opposite.
Yeah, the King's Arms, yeah.
Can I
Councillor
just, I suspect the reason why you're not going to have any NPR stuff on pillars coming in is because you're running the electrics for the car park off of the old station. No, honestly, I,
In
Well,
which case, that's an
yes,
argument
there
for
is-
them to invest,
Yeah,
not an
it
argument
is.
to chuck blanket
Okay.
charge.
Okay,
So we're not happy anyway.
we're not happy, we need to take a response to their charges, and it's against what we wanted. Anyways, as a town council, or as a committee, our decision. Correct?
Can I just mention
You can.
that, of course, the deadline that this has to be,
Today.
well, yes, that's been extended, I think, to tomorrow, taking into account the meeting tonight. So Christine, so that does need to go in tomorrow.
You've got 3 hours.
Sorry, can we also highlight, this isn't just a leisure centre, it's a community centre, so our library will be there.
Yeah.
And our public libraries are such a valuable resource to those who cannot afford access to, who can't afford access to all of the books that a lot of us will take for granted. So again, I'm just really uncomfortable with us allowing charging for what is essentially an essential public service. And Wiltshire Council prides themselves in not closing down libraries as other counties have done. And surely access to our library should be made as easy as possible, not prohibitively expensive.
So we need to take a response. And again,
The fact that last time they said they weren't going to charge, now this time they're saying they're going to charge. So,
I think our main response is that this is not a
Crazy.
yeah.
normal, this is not a county car park. This is the leisure centre car park, or the campus, which encompasses the library, which much without council.
yeah, the precedent has been set by what they've done with other leisure centres across the county.
Yeah,
And now
yeah,
they're
and we are now, and we are,
now they're stating that they're gonna provide all our car.
and if that's the case, are they doing that retrospectively to the others?
No.
And we can't see that.
We'll just hope that nobody reads it.
Okay. We need a,
That's all. I
draft
think I've got the
response.
gist of it.
Because I'm not going to suggest the gist is we're not happy, and we
Yeah.
want, just,
Playing devil's advocate, I mean, the response could be come out saying where the town council last time said that they were worried that this car park was going to be used by those of the public who use the town rather than that. But if that's the argument, then is there going to be a refund for those users that went into the campus to pay the parking and get the money back if they used the campus and not?
it is the usage of the campus, it's what we want to focus on. Those using the campus don't have to pay, those that don't, do. But I don't, there's got to be a mechanism of that.
Provided we've refundable up to say 3 hours.
Yeah. The 3 hours.
And
free parking.
easily done,
Which was-
so
yeah.
it doesn't cause all the hassles that of course we heard in the meeting, then fine. Do that, but you go to the campus there with your ticket, you get the money back. Or you do something which is simply swipe in and swipe out. So, I mean.
That's what I meant about.
There's plenty of ways of doing it, it just needs to be, someone, needs to, well, they need to know, one, our response, and two, we need to, again, investigate that. Because they're not gonna investigate, really, unless we push this, to say that we don't want that, what's the alternatives?
I still think the best thing would be to, put the legislation in.
And there's plenty of, parking machines that you do that now, it's not difficult, is it? Okay, so we can have Linda's gonna table a response, via our comments that we've made. Okay, we're just Sparkle team, I think we're on. Anything for the Sparkle team, the next,
Just try and tidy up some of the graffiti on the skate park if we can.
Oh, team's got that on their list. That's brilliant.
Yeah, can you add the blue seating area to that as well?
the what's it,
Blue seating area.
The teach area under the park.
Yeah, well, because it's got some words.
That's town council, so yeah, I too.
Simon?
It's in the park, so the trees like that.
Because I think this might be outside the remit, but I understand walking into this meeting today, the telephone box got graffiti on the inside. That's not anything we,
Yeah.
in town square, and it just looks, it's the same near the bus stop, is where people come through into the town, it just looks really awful. Is that you, Graham?
Sorry. That's not really
Guilty look on your face.
Tell them what it is.
So I haven't put feet on telephone box for at least a year.
As we're talking about the duty, is there anything that you can do about the subway? I mean, when my grandson worked in it, you know, he just read the word, he said, oh, no, I didn't say it, I was just doing it.
It's I thought there was something, that was part of the art project, yes, actually, part of the art project is to decorate.
Yeah, it's in.
As a family, a regular user of that, somebody used to use the train station a lot. It can always do with a sort of semi-regular pressure wash, because the smell of urine when you're going through there's quite
It is
strong.
Wiltshire Council responsibility, but our team do go down there, and since we lost our sort of like street cleaner from Ivy Verde, we're not quite getting the same service sadly, but. Yeah, it's sort of like on the list, but they were a little tad busy on Friday.
Yeah, I can imagine, yes, everyone's been a bit busy over the last few days, weather-wise.
So yeah, I've got it noted, thank you.
Anything else on Sparkle?
If I could just mention, something they have done already, something I asked for was cleaning fly posting of roadside comms communication boxes. Could that go on as a sort of standing thing for the team
It
to,
has gone on to the last two, I've added it to the last.
right, if it could roll on, because, you know, posters will appear, if we could keep those boxes
Our
clear.
team can get rid of those, because I did a policy, I'd only been here a few months.
Yeah, it's
And
come
I
for.
Rather
did a
than the Sparkle
policy
team.
whereby our team can actually remove fly posting,
Oh, right, but it wasn't working though, because,
probably because we're really short staffed, that's probably why.
right, well, if
We can
Sparkle
put it
could
on
do
there,
it
but we can keep
while,
an eye on it as well,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Double, a
Because
two,
we
two
always know where it is, so if you know, you need to report it somehow as well.
yeah, and if they see it.
They
when they're
can-
going
they
round,
can, yeah.
hopefully they can then, yeah.
So we'll keep informing of new locations for new
Yeah.
Yeah.
fly posting, but check the normal places as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? End of meeting, thank you all. How do we stop the? I'm sure that's.
I know nothing.
Look like this. They might say some naughty words because we might as well shoot.
That's put over it now.
Right, how?
I can't see, if we're running farm why can't we?
We have to end it and then we have to let it buffer.
Okay.
So.
Move the down on this one, just right click and see what. It's got to give us.
Cover.
Yes,
So we stop.
yeah.
But we should be able to just end it, and I don't know what he's, I
Yeah.
don't know what.
Take this over to them. Just the sweet size.
Oh, hang on, now.
Yeah, basically, it's more complicated than the other way.
This is
We paused it
YouTube, isn't
anyway,
it?
you're
We've
right,
stopped
we
it, haven't
paused it.
we? I should be able to just end it, and I don't know how to do this.
So if you like, I either just quit the whole page, so we just quit the corner, that's all I know.
It stops streaming.